my name is Kelly, and this is my channel, Kelly Reads a Lot. Welcome or welcome back. I have two little boys that I just can't seem to get to be quiet today, so you might hear a lot of giggling and playing in the background. But we are going to be doing the Extraordinarily Average book tag, and I was tagged by an erudite adventure. I love their channel. Tony's the one that actually tagged me. He's the brother, but it's a brother or sister duo. They do stuff together. They do stuff separately. I would really recommend them. But the creator of this tag was David Wiley, and I'm so glad that Tony tagged me so that I could check out David's channel. It's great, so support him, and let's keep sharing this tag. I'll get right to the prompt. So the first question is, what is a book that is viewed as average but you felt was extraordinary? Now, keep in mind, this is through the eyes of a teenage girl. That's when I read this in high school, and I have not read it again since. And it is none other than Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. Now, who knows? There could be all sorts of things in this that make it not so great of a book that I didn't pick up on when I was like 16 years old. But I loved the characters. I loved having Robin Hood in a story. It's about the medieval times. You kind of get a sense of Richard the Lionheart, Prince John. I mean, think of some of the things from like Robin Hood, if you've seen any versions of that. But then you also have some characters that aren't necessarily as famous. You have a chivalrous romance, that kind of thing. I loved it, but I've never heard anyone literally ever talk about it on Booktube. The second question is, who is an author who is viewed as average but you felt was extraordinary? And I don't really hear this author talked about very often on Booktube either. And that is Kate Morton. Kate Morton is one of my favorite authors. She writes historical, dual timeline novels, and I have not disliked a single one that I've read. I like the way that she strings words together, just her language, and I like her storylines. I usually like her characters quite a bit too. So some I've liked better than others, but I just don't really hear her getting much credit or talked about, so I definitely recommend Kate Morton. All right, question 3. Who is a musician or band whose music is considered average but you felt was extraordinary? Okay, so you've got to, he stood the test of time. We still hear about him. Of course, we hear the Vienna Waltz and everything, but we don't hear about this musician as much as we do like Mozart or Beethoven or those types of musicians. And I'm talking about Strauss. I always wonder why we don't hear, like people aren't making like biographies of Strauss's life really. There's no movies about what he was like, and yet his music is beautiful and stands the test of time, and I just love Strauss's music. So and again, you just don't, like see on Philharmonic an evening of Strauss or whatever. So I just wonder why that is. I enjoy him quite a bit. Question number 4. What is a TV show or movie that is considered average but you felt was extraordinary? Well, Tony talked about Arrow, and I agree with everything he said. It's like people don't really see the advantages and the wonderfulness of that show. I think they focus on the attractiveness and the fitness of the actors and don't realize that the writers really did a good job with character development, and the storylines actually meant something. And when they made certain decisions, it wasn't just like, oh, we're running out of storyline to tell. It was like part of the character's growth and development. So I agreed with him there. But what I'm going to say for myself is Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. I know you're thinking, oh, what a schmaltzy family show. But if you go back and watch that show, I mean, I did, my little girl self. I'm talking about things that I loved as a child a lot here. It's funny, but my little girl self goes back to thinking about that show. And yes, I loved the, Dr. Quinn and Sully, I shipped those characters as a little girl, but they dealt with a lot of very serious issues on that show. And I guess in some ways they could have come across them a little heavy-handed, but I felt like they dealt with a lot of really sincerely important topics on that show. All right. What is a Booktube channel whose subscriber count is average, but you feel it's extraordinary? And I'm going to go with Reading with Tatiana on this. I talk about her all the time. I'm part of the Tatiana fan club, but she has such in-depth reviews, and she is so concise with what she's saying. And she tells you about the author, she tells you about the book, she tells you what she didn't like, how it makes you feel. And like, it's so well done. I think she needs more subscribers. All right, you're hearing little boys in the background. Just ignore that. I've told them to be quiet, but number 6, what is a skill you're average at, but you'd like to become extraordinary? I would say musical ability. Like, I was a ballet dancer and I really put a lot of time and energy into that. And I took a little bit of music for a year or two here and there with different instruments, but I didn't work at it. So I'd love to just be able to go back and relearn and become really good at the piano and the guitar, and maybe train my voice a little bit to where it was extraordinary instead of just okay. All right, 7, you find a time machine that will take you back in a time for a day, but the day you select must be an average day. Where would you go and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? Well, this is a little bit personal. My father's been gone for about 15 and a half years. I remember just a very normal day. I was supposed to go to Eastern Oklahoma where he lived for a workshop and it got canceled. But my husband and I ended up going anyway. This was before we had children, of course. But we went to a park that I'd spent a lot of time at as a kid that day and just hung out. And I just got to kind of relive part of my younger childhood as an adult with my dad and my stepmom. And it was just a lovely day. And I would like to relive that again. Number 8, you went a week vacation, but all the popular travel spots are all booked out. Where would you go and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? Well, there are, not too far from here, there are some like very big touristy places, but just in the actual beach area itself of San Luis Obispo, it's so beautiful. You have like seals just coming up to the beach and it's just so quiet. I've been there before. I'd like to go back there again. That's the only not real hot spot that I can think of. Of course, I'd like to go to Italy and return to England and things like that, but just someplace that, you know, isn't necessarily huge. San Luis Obispo, I love it there. It's in California, in case you haven't heard of it. 9, tag some extraordinary channels. I am going to tag, I think I'll tag Reading with Tatiana since I mentioned her. And this channel, I always find his insights very interesting. So I'm going to tag Read by Fred. And I think that's it for now. If you'd like to do this, consider yourself tagged. Thanks for coming by today. I hope that you read a lot. Bye-bye.